confidence comes from competence. And if
Like that.
you don't have that competence of your offers, your content strategy, what is it that makes you stand out among your competitors? Why somebody should choose you? If
Mhm.
you can't answer the question, why should that person choose you over somebody else? And what makes your service so good? You're going to really struggle to say that with confidence out loud. And the only thing that's going to give you that confidence is truly understanding your offers, really backing your pricing, understanding the main things that you're going to support that client with, and infusing that into your messaging and into your sales conversations so that you don't become the jack of all trades.
Welcome to the Rebel Energy Podcast with me, your host, Jade Ellsbury. I'm a corporate dropout and multiple six-figure online business owner. My mission is to help you get out of the 9-to-5 mindset and create a new narrative for moms working from home to gain more freedom, more income, and living your dream life by cultivating your own rebel energy. So grab a glass of wine, get comfy, and let's dig in. Hi, Rebels. I'm here today with Nadine. She is a business development and marketing coach, and she works with ambitious online service providers and coaches who want to build high ticket offers and scale to generate multiple 5-figure months through impact while creating freedom. Fuck you money. Number one, love that the F word's in there. I actually naturally repel people that way in my podcast because they're like, I don't, I couldn't get past the first episode. You said the F word. I'm like, awesome. But it's very similar to what I do. So I'm very excited for this. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of how you got into this niche?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love a good conversation, and like I'll probably talk the ears off anybody who'll want to listen about majority of the subjects we'll probably cover.
Yeah.
But my name's Nadine, for anybody who doesn't know. And like you said, I'm a business development marketing, and I also touch on sales when I'm working with clients. But I suppose I started around 3 years ago, nearly 3.5 years ago, I suppose. And I, unlike most people in the industry, I didn't hate my 9 to 5. That's not why I started my online business.
I
I
love
actually started my business because I loved my 9 to 5, but I had been in the same career for almost 11 years. And I'd done different sectors in my career, and it's like a psychology and kind of therapy background. But I didn't want that to be it for the rest of my life. I literally sat there and I was like, is this it? Did I just find what I'm going to do for the foreseeable, and that's all I'm destined to be? And
Yeah.
then I was constantly conflicted because from the age of 21, I got my degree from college, from university, and I got into my work, and I had been doing voluntary work in this sector since I was 17. So by the time I was 21, I already had all these years. And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to go traveling. So at 21, I took off and I left my job. I just gave my resignation. And then I continued to do that for every 3 years until I started my business. And then I came to like that age of around 27. And
Mhm.
I was like, you can't just keep burning down your life. You can't just keep burning down, having no income. You need to be able to do something that you love, but also be able to sustain traveling at the same time. So I was like, I can't believe this can be it for it. You're just going to burn down your life every 2 or 3 years when you want to take off and explore and
Yeah.
live. And I was like, no, that's not going to be it. So basically, I did an online course to become a virtual assistant.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I did a virtual assistance course, and I very quickly realized that if somebody was to hand me their administration or ask me to do something like a task for them, I wouldn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
I was almost from the beginning repelling trying to get people to become somebody that I worked with because I didn't want them tasks. They wouldn't have lit me up. And coming from a background of a job that I loved, I don't understand what it's like to work in a job that you hate. Obviously, everybody has bad days,
Yeah.
but if you wake up and you dread the work that you're physically doing, then I don't think it's worth it. And it's never
Um,
been like no amount of money for me in the world that would be enough to make me do something that I hate. So when I create the virtual assistant business, almost instantly I pivoted into social media management and I niched down
mm,
because I had a background in psychology. So I knew how people were thinking. I could use those strengths. And I
yeah.
really liked the online social world. So I done social media management and from the virtual assistance course, and I actually got my first paid client through my Instagram content within 2 weeks of starting.
That's
Soon as it
amazing.
down, it was incredible. The person contacted me and was like, I saw your post and I would really love to do this. I had less than 100 followers.
Yep.
And I got my first paid client and I was like, "Oh my God, niching is the way forward." Like I was so sure I had done
Oh,
everything
I
right.
love this preach because so many people are like, "No, I wanna work with anybody. I
Yeah.
I wanna
No,
be
yeah.
open working with anybody." And I'm like, But you're not going to get anybody doing that."
100%. And it's not just that, but deep down you don't. Like I understand at that point in your business when you start and you're like, yeah, I would love to work with anybody, but
Yes.
then you have to think about the worst case scenario. What does anybody look like? Would you like to work with somebody that doesn't fill your cup, that you dread answering the phone to, that you dread being in conversation with? What is your worst case scenario and work backwards? Because very quickly you'll realize you don't actually want to work with anybody. But then I entered into the coaching world and I actually fell into it. It was never my plan. So within about, I was actually looking back on my dates a few days ago, and it was around, so I started my virtual assistants business officially on Instagram in the April, got my first client. And then in the May, I started getting approached. Now, I hadn't advertised coaching, but I started getting DMs. It was from people asking me, Nadine, I don't want you to do it for me, but can you teach me how to do it?
Mhm.
And I was like, what? Okay, let me look into this because obviously that wasn't something I intended to. But as soon as I started offering coaching, I started obviously with like one off sessions and then intensives and then a month and then 3 months. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. I can't believe I never thought this before because I had come from a background of like empowering people to do things.
Yeah.
And really I realized that's not, I don't want to do somebody else's social media management. I want to go full time into coaching. So I completely pivoted into coaching and mentorship. And I've done that ever since. So it's been almost 3 years just coaching.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much, and I'm sure a lot of listeners too, like, "Oh my gosh, like, it hasn't been that easy for me." But I will say too, embracing your journey, because as you know, I started as a virtual assistant, and, you know, I was very the same same as you. I think I loved feeling needed, if that makes sense, and I loved what being a VA did, which allowed me to be at home with my kids, but I didn't love what I was doing. And so then I actually went to coaching as well because I had so many people reaching out to me like, "Well, how did you find your clients as a virtual assistant?" And so I actually was giving my VA coach a bunch of referrals. I think I got her like 5 clients. And I'm a natural born leader. Right? As a little girl, everyone's like, "You're bossy, you're bossy." So I was like, "Okay." You know, in my mind, I'm like, that makes so much more sense to me that like I'm a better coach than a virtual assistant. But it was very similar. But I just had a lot of VAs reaching out to me, like, well, how'd you do this? And so when I decided I wanted to be a coach, because I didn't want to copy my coach, I kind of played around a little bit and was like, whatever. And she's like, what do you actually want to do? Because nothing was like clicking.
Yeah.
I'm like, "I wanna be like you. I wanna be a VA coach." And she's like, "Then do it." And yeah, very similar within, a couple weeks, I had multiple clients that wanted to work with me. So, I think when just kind of like, I don't know, dip your toes and take a risk, right? And just really fully embrace the journey, wherever that may looks like. But I think that's where a lot of women, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the uncertainty of the journey that, like, keeps them either playing small or never getting started.
Yeah, 100%. I think you are almost afraid to put yourself into a position, especially if you have found any type of success in the business that you're doing or in what you have been doing, the work that you're carrying out, even if you don't enjoy it, you know you can successfully do it.
Mhm.
Whereas when you want to move into, say, like I had one of my clients, she was an email marketing expert. She was incredible, but she no longer wanted to do it. It didn't light her up anymore. So when she came to me, she wanted to switch to podcast management, which was like totally a different field from what she was known for. And she had built such a good reputation. But as I just said it earlier, there's no amount of money in the world you can make that's worth sacrificing your happiness.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting down with her and she said to me, I'm going to journal on this. I need to know what's blocking me from going all in on this because we started to change up her content strategy and her marketing and her branding to target people for her podcast management offers. And we created the podcast management offers, etc. But I remember when she was putting herself out there, she kept like dipping into both. And I was like, why do you not want to go fully in? And she was like, I'm going to go away and journal on this. And she said, I'm just afraid that I won't be able to replicate the same success or more. I'm afraid that I'm going to totally strip down this side of the business that is making me money, but I'm not happy in. But then I'm going to create this other side. And what if nobody wants to work with me in this? What if I can't build it to the same success as this? Or what if I I put myself out there and nobody wants to work with me like this. And everybody still comes back to me for the email marketing side of things. And I remember having that conversation with her. And I was like, exactly like you said, if you don't try, you're not going to know. And if you still see yourself doing this side of the business in 5 years, keep going with the email marketing. If it's not that bad, go with it, go for it. But if you can see yourself only unhappy continuing as you are in the next 5 years, then you need to make a change and you need to just go for it.
Yeah, and you can always go back to it as well too, but
Yeah.
I and I think if you are continuing doing something you're not happy with, even though I'm sure at one point she was, and that's probably why she's successful, but I feel like, if she would have continued with it, the way that she shows up, right? Like, it's not gonna have the same energy if you're not passionate about what you're doing, which is probably why you landed your first client in a couple of weeks because, you had that confidence, like, I know what I'm talking about, but you were excited about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you feel, and that's the thing, especially at the beginning, you're terrified to niche. And I know what that's like. It's like, if I niche, I'm going to block everybody. What if I cut myself off from future sales,
Yeah.
future clients? But then when you realize is that when you niche, you actually can talk about that subject so broadly because it consumes you. It becomes
Mhm.
the only thing you can speak about and that you're thinking about. So it opens so many more doors for you. So like just like that client, when we went all in then on her podcasting, she no longer was like conflicted in her brain about what to talk about, or should I talk about this today, or should I talk about that today? Her content strategy became hyper focused. So then she could create all these topics to talk about in her content strategy. And she fully could lean into the passionate side of that. And her conviction made the sales because she looked fully confident, and her conviction was shown through so much.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What do you see that women struggle with the most when they come to work with you?
Oh, it can be any of the three sides that I really work with clients on. So some sometimes I always put my pillars for what I support clients with on these three things because they are the three things that mainly come out.
Mhm.
Either they have this big idea, but they don't know how to package their offers, or they don't know how to make it so that it suits their lifestyle or their income goals, etc. So they want to do this type of work, but they don't know how to package it. Is it going to be coaching? Is it going to be done for you? Is it going to be a group? Is it going to be a membership? The other side of that is that they are great when they get people on calls. So as I always hear, "Oh, I'm great once I get somebody on a discovery call, and I my close rate is really high, but getting them on that call is really difficult." So then
Mhm.
that firstly tells me like you've got great sales skills, but your marketing skills are not that great. You don't
Yeah.
know how to get people inside the door, or it's the flip side. People are really good at getting people into their inbox, but once they get onto a sales call, they find themselves slashing the prices. They're terrified. They don't know how to confidently have that sales conversation with that person to really showcase the value of the offer. So they end up underselling or not making the sale. So with those three pillars in mind, they're usually one of the three.
Yeah. And that is so true. I see that a lot with the virtual assistants as well too, is that lack of confidence. You know, and I don't know if your clients have like, a really, great background. Maybe they worked in the online space or as a coach or, anything like that. But a lot of mine are brand spanking new. A lot of them, kind of like what we talked about, like they do hate their 9 to 5 and so they're looking at VA as like their escape. And so I think for them, it's like once they invest, they feel like it's like that's the hard part. And I'm like, no, investing it, right? But then you still have to work hard. You still have to get out of your comfort zone. Again, it's not like, oh, I did the hard thing. I invested in a coach and now I'm magically gonna be able to leave my 9 to 5. I don't know. Do you get that too sometimes?
Yes, 100%. Like so many of my clients either come to me when they're still in their 9 to 5 or they just left their 9 to 5
Mhm.
and they're just on the cusp of taking their business full time. And they're like, oh my God, this is the scariest thing I've ever done. And I'm like, no, the next part is the scariest thing you've ever done because now you're going to go full commitment into your business.
Mhm.
You prove to yourself it's going to become your full time. And that's going to require you to push your comfort level more than you've ever imagined. You're going to go deeper in your business. You're going to go become this new person that you're like developing into be through your business. And that's going to be the scary part, who you're about to become. And doing the confident thing, like picking up your phone and talking into the camera is not a normal thing that you do. Like it's unless you're trying to be an influencer from a very early age, majority of us 9 to 5, we're not talking into our camera phones and like advertising ourselves. We only saw influencers on the internet doing things like that and thought that would never be us, or oh my God, that's so cringe. And I'm doing it now in my car when I go. I purposely bought a mount because I just enjoy talking to my camera now and like thinking about my thoughts out loud and then posting it as
Yes.
content. It's
Which
so funny how you can develop. But my very first, like I could hear myself breathing into my phone with no, oh my God. And today I'm talking to you about content strategy. And like I was
you're,
terrified,
like,
but
sweating, red
oh my God.
face.
And all those thoughts come into mind. Oh my God, what if somebody else sees it? What if somebody else sees me talking to my phone? What if one of my friends sees this video? But I think it's who you're about to become. It's the scariest part, but it's also the fun part. It's the part that you're launching into. Investing is one thing. Like once that money is gone out of your account, you know you're in. But it's everything else that you're about to embark on is like the scary but fun part.
Yeah, and it really is. I always say too, I don't feel like I'm a VA or a business coach. I feel like I'm more of a life coach because I think I know once you decide to go all in, and I love this quote that is, you have to be, or are you willing to sacrifice your old self for like your new self? And
Mhm.
it's so true. But when they decide to embark on entrepreneurship, they really start to learn about themselves of like, holy shit. And the self growth that happens as well too. Like I am a completely different person than I was 7, 8 years ago before I started my business, completely different. Like I, the lack of self-confidence and everything. And yeah, what do you have to like, what have you seen in yourself that has changed a lot? Or I don't know, maybe you haven't.
I am like I'm a totally different person.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Like
I don't wanna assume,
entrepreneurship.
but
No, no, 100%. Entrepreneurship has brought out my best qualities that I didn't even know that I had because in my 9 to 5 or in my normal life, I've never been put in situations where I had to push myself as much as I do in entrepreneurship. Owning a business is not for everybody. That's on purpose.
yeah,
If everybody had their own business, who would be running all the things that we do outside, like the shops and things? But that's okay too. Like
yeah.
you don't need to want to be an entrepreneur. Some people want to be able to close down their laptop at 5 and go home and do the same thing on Monday. They enjoy the routine, and that's okay. But for me, that was never okay. I never wanted to live under somebody else's rule, but I was never in situations where I had to be as resilient as I am in business. Like you go through the highest highs and the lowest lows in business, and you have to be okay in both situations.
Mhm.
And people tell detached from situation, a client doesn't move forward. Don't let it mean anything about you. Or a client does move forward. Don't let it mean anything about you. And it's like, sorry, how am I not meant to make this about me? If a client doesn't go forward, I'm meant to just brush that off and be like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And if a client does go ahead, I'm not meant to say, well, that's because I'm incredible at what I do. And it's because I've shown that I get people results and they want to work with me for that reason. But
Yeah,
I feel like practicing that detachment has been huge for me because there was no other time in my life that I had to practice the resiliency and detachment from the situation as I do in business because
yeah.
it's very easy not to let the negatives get on top of you, but equally not let the positives make you think I've made it. That's it. I don't need to do any more for my business anymore. and, and I
I
think
wish I would feel that way sometimes because 'cause I'm like, I want more. I want like, "Okay, I
100%.
achieved this, what's next?"
100%. But also, I think in both ways it can work against you because if you have a negative experience, like for example, a client doesn't move forward, you can think that's the end. It's not going to go any further. But then if you go and you reach your highest height, you can make that mean something as well. Like I don't need to put any more hard work in. I've reached the peak. It's going to work for me now. And I find that a lot when clients first get their first clients or when they start to see some success in their business, they start to pull back because they think this is going to make my next sale. But then for me as a person, I had to really like step back when I had moments like that and think to myself, how can I push myself as a person to not let that mean anything about me, but also take on what I've learned from both the negative and positive so I can keep moving forward. And I think also my confidence in speaking. If you saw me in that first story I posted where I felt like I was talking to a room full of people and my phone was shaking in my hand as I was recording it. And now suddenly like I do masterclasses for 100 people. I'm doing guest speaking. I'm on podcasts. And I feel like I can carry myself well in that conversation. Me 3 years ago would have laughed at you if you told
But
me that I
yes,
was confidence.
I say that all the time. I use it as an example because a lot of times like, well, you know, I think that new entrepreneurs forget that like we had a day one. Like the only difference is that I just started before you did. But I love using the example like I failed speech class 2 times, once in high school, once in college. The only reason I passed it the 3rd time in college, yes, I had to take it again because I got like a D, I think, before, was because they allowed you for whatever reason. It was an online speech class. So I got to do it in the comfort of my own home. But I remember like telling my husband, like, you have to leave. Like, I wouldn't even do the speech with anyone around or even him listening to me. Me recording my voicemail, like, leave a voicemail after the beep, whatever. I wouldn't even do that in front of him. That is how or, like, even having attention on me at my baby shower. Like, my sister-in-law had, like, a code word where, like, if my anxiety got too bad, it was lemon drop, and, like, I could just say lemon drop, and she would, like, make an excuse for me to leave because I was so nervous about having so many people look at me. And so when I say that, they're like, "Holy shit." I'm like, "Yeah, you're not just born knowing what to do or feeling confident, right?" Like I think too a lot of times they want like a shortcut, right? Like, well, just tell me how to land a client. Okay. There's more
Yeah,
into that just going and posting, right?
100%. I always say confidence comes from competence. And if
Like that.
you don't have that competence of your offers, your content strategy, what is it that makes you stand out among your competitors? Why somebody should choose you? If
Mhm.
you can't answer the question, why should that person choose you over somebody else? And
Mhm.
what makes your service so good? You're going to really struggle to say that with confidence out loud. And the only thing that's going to give you that confidence is truly understanding your offers, really backing your pricing, understanding the main things that you're going to support that client with, and infusing that into your messaging and into your sales conversations so that you don't become the jack of all trades. So someone says, "Can you do that?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm not really sure. It's not really my strong point." And then you sound really shy or unsure of yourself. I
Yeah.
think the confidence level that you need to have in what you do and how you do it and why someone should choose you gives that confidence. I always say to clients, like, I've done 11 years in psychology, like even longer for the amount of therapy things and certs and things that I have. But I always say I never suggest and I never do I do a lot of mindset work with clients, but I'll never be that person who gives you the mindset shift without the practical tools to apply it to what you've just learned or the
Mhm.
shift you just had. And that's simply because I want you to have that mindset shift of that breakthrough, but then I want you to be able to apply it with competence and confidence. So you understand, okay, now that I've had this massive shift, now I know how to apply it to speaking about my offers. Now I know how to do that in a sales conversation. Now I know how to do that through my content messaging. And in turn, their confidence shows on the back of that. Because I had a client say to me before, I had a coach before you, and I left with so many more questions because she would tell me what to do, but not why I was doing it. But
Yeah.
with you, you tell me what to do, but then you also tell me the reasoning behind why I'm doing it. So I understand it better and I feel more confident to do it then because I fully have that confidence in the background of my mind of why I'm doing it in the first place.
Yeah. That was something that I learned as a coach of to go back to the competence and the confidence. And I just talked about this yesterday with the mindset coach guest speaker that we had at Rebel Energy Academy. But, we had talked about, I hate the saying fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
Um, I don't like that. And I feel like when you're just telling someone, "Well, go and do this," or just show up and be confident, they need to understand, right? Like what their offer is, or even why you're telling them, "Hey, you need to be reaching out to more people," right? Well, if you only reach out to 3 people, all 3 are probably gonna ghost, right? It's so breaking down even like the numbers game and things like that. So I think I'm gonna take that and steal that and use that with my be like confidence and competence because you can't have one really without the other, right?
No, 100%. And I truly believe it because just like you said, I'm not against fake it until you make it. I'm more so in the paraphrase of like, or the perspective of it being, who do you want to become? how does that person operate?
Embody that person,
How
yeah.
can you start to embody that person and show up
Yeah.
as that person? Even if you don't fully believe you are that person yet or you aren't that person yet, you want to become a 5-figure month business owner. Like
Yeah.
what before I put a piece of content out about this before, but I said, how did I earn 6 figures in my business? How did I create a 6-figure business? I showed up as that person before I reached it.
I say that all the time too, I love it. I knew we were gonna have so much in common. But yeah, yeah, so yeah, when you put it that way, it's like I'm not yeah, I think it's the different like mind, right? Like I just don't want them to be just show up and just pretend like they know all the things when they don't. But okay, with the six-figure a year business owner or even a month, would they sleep until noon? Or you know what I mean? Different things. Or would they not show up for a discovery call or a coaching call? So yeah, I like that mindset shift a little bit more of just, yeah, start to show up as the person that you already want to be. It works so well for my
Mhm.
clients. Which is mind blowing to me, right? They invest a lot of money and sometimes people just like don't show up for their coaching calls. And I'm like, right? I'm sure if that was a
Yeah.
discovery call, you would definitely be showing up. So
100%.
yeah, if you can't keep track of, calls or, being responsible and booking in calls or whatever, how are you gonna be able to manage someone else's business? Online service providers, are you ready for 10K months? Over the past 5 years, I have helped 1,000 women not only start their VA businesses, but also scale to consistent 10K plus months. Whether it's OBMs, SMMs, VA agencies, myself and my team of coaches can help you dream bigger and achieve more. If you're needing a one-on-one coaching program customized to help you scale sustainably, send me a DM at Rebel Energy Coaching on Instagram saying scale.
One of the biggest things that I've done with clients before about working around their mindset, around their confidence, is that people have this understanding, like especially if you're at the beginning stages of your business, people think I'm not good enough to work with that person, or I don't have enough experience to work with that person, or I'm not skilled enough to work with that person. And I always tell them the reason my mom thinks, and I call myself a tech phobe. Like if I could run my business through like hologram and like teleport into people's business, into people's homes, I would, because I actually, as much as I run my business through tech, I absolutely hate it. And I always think tech gods are against me every chance they get. But the reason my mom thinks that I'm such an expert at tech is because I'm 1% better than she is.
Yeah.
I can do it 1% better than the person who can't. And that's it. You don't need to be 10 steps ahead of somebody. You just need to be one step ahead of that person. So when I fix something for my mom, she might hand me her phone and ask me to fix it for her. And I happen to know the setting for that on her phone and I give it back to her. She's like, oh my God, you're such an expert. And I'm like, no, I'm one step ahead of you. And that's the mentality that I tell my clients to adapt when they're early stages in their business. It's like, you don't need to have 10 steps ahead of that person. If you know for a matter of fact, if they handed you that problem and you can solve it because you have 1% more experience in doing it, that makes you an automatic expert to that person. So
Yeah.
if you can adapt that mindset that you don't need to be 10 steps, you only need to be that one step ahead, that helps you to feel even more confident. It's like, yeah, I can do that 1% better. Or why are you that person your friends go to for that particular reason instead of everybody else? Or why in your 9 to 5 are you known for being that person that people can go to support?
Yeah.
Because you're better than everybody else at that. And you need to own that.
I've actually heard that before too of, the only difference is that or like when you're looking for a coach, right? Like find someone that's like one or two steps ahead of you. And not and they'll just continue to do that. Like I've had coaches who are like, okay, I've taught you all that I could teach you. Like you and I are on the same level now. And I go and find another coach to like help me grow and get to that next level. And I think that's one thing that I see with my virtual assistants too is they think they need to have like these mind-blowing like content strategies that they if they are wanting to do content or repurposing or whatever. And I'm like, "No, you have to remember that, like, let's say your ideal client is online fitness coaches. Online fitness coaches, their zone of genius, and that was my niche. That's why I chose it because I know for a fact they know what they need to know. So if I need them to help me lose 10 pounds in, 2 months, they got me. But when it comes to like, how to maybe create an awesome post or how to use technology or set up things in the background of their business, they have no fucking idea. what
Mhm.
that looks like. And so I tell them, like, they look at like, you might look at them in awe of what they've already built, but they're gonna look at you with awe with the knowledge that you have. Again, what you said, because you know a little bit more than they do.
100%. And I like, that's the thing. We are all like, it's the same reason I have gone to the gym for since I was 21. I'm 31 now. I've been training for 11 years straight, but I still get PTs and they still impress me. It happened last night. I was working with a PT in the gym last night and I've been doing hip thrusts for years. And suddenly he was like, yeah, you need to drop your hips more. You need to do this more. And I was like, wow, I never thought about all these things. Even though I had experience, he's more experienced. And
Yeah,
because he's more experienced, even after my 11 years, I still feel like he's an expert
yeah,
more than I am. And it still blows my mind because I'm like, like you said, in awe of the things he can spot that I can't,
yeah,
because that's not here to be a PT. So
yeah.
even though he has any experience in it, I know he had more experience and I'm just going to trust him because I trust his knowledge and his experience more than I trust my own.
Yeah, and there's always someone out there that knows more than you and or less than you, right? Um, and that's what one thing too, like I don't like to come off as that coach that knows all the things. Like 100% I can help you get fully booked out. I can get you to 5K months, et cetera, et cetera. But like I let them know, I'm like, I don't do my own stuff anymore. Like I don't do VA work. So I'll be on calls with um like my mastermind calls with my clients and they'll be like, "Oh, I need, XYZ, a new system for this, right? I just learned what Milkshake was like a couple months ago or Metricool. I don't know what
Yeah.
those things are, right? And I always say
Yeah.
back in my day, my kids think I'm old, but I'm like, back in my day when I was a new VA, right? Like Kajabi was all the rage or, whatever. But I'm like, but also, right? I tell them, here's the thing, you guys talk amongst yourselves because you guys are actually doing the social media work. You guys are scheduling out the posts. That's not me. I can totally connect you with my content expert and let you know like what she uses. But I really empower them of like, I don't need to know that. Because at the end of the day, I don't need to know all the different new cool systems for XYZ because that's not my zone of genius, and I stay within my zone of genius. And again, it's not like I'm not open to learning more, like, I love but I want to show them that, to be an expert at one thing, you don't have to be an expert at all the other things.
100%. I think that goes back to the niching aspect though of like what is your zone of genius? And I always find this when either people are specializing coming from when they're niching into what type of say VA or what when they move away just from VA and they want to specialize in particular services and call themselves like a social media manager or podcast VA or whatever. Or when they're scaling their businesses. And like I've got people in my mastermind in the Freedom Expansion Mastermind when they are like, okay, I want to create a second offer. And they almost go back to making the same old mistakes that they used to, where they're like, well, my second offer, I want to start being able to support all these other people. I'm like, no, back to the niche. You do not need to teach everybody everything.
Yes.
You need to be able to, especially in this point of your business, you need to be able to hone in on the expertise you know you have and expand on the same expertise. It's not a case of, oh, I'm moving from one to one into group. So my group is going to encompass this and 10 times more things that I don't really cover or I don't need, or, that's not my zone of genius. I'm like, no, your group needs to encompass more of your expertise and hone in on what you do actually do well, as opposed to something that's going to be something that you don't even really. It's like me trying to teach tech systems and tech like I have parts in my mastermind where I'm going to teach onboarding, onboarding systems or client management systems based on the ones I use. But if you ask me outside of that, I'm going to tell you to get yourself a tech VA, or I'm going to tell you to go and go to a system strategist, because outside of the things of my experience in that, I tell clients that's not my zone of genius.
Yeah.
However, if you want to create your content strategy, your profitable offer, if you want to scale your offers, if you want to improve your sales conversations, that's me. You can stick with me through the whole of what you do, stay with me. If
Yeah.
you want me to tell you the latest tech,
Yeah.
that's not me. And I'm very sorry. And I think there's also a really good transparency in that with clients, because from the get go, you set that expectation of what you're going to learn while you're with me.
Mhm.
So it also tells that client, okay, you're so sure of what you do know. I'm not second guessing at what you do know versus what you don't. I know what your zone of genius is. And then in turn, that also gives them more confidence and buy into what you do know because you're very transparent in what you don't.
Yeah,
And
you're not a bull you're right, you're not a bullshitter. Like, you're not gonna try and sell someone on an offer that they're not ready for. It's the same thing, you know?
exactly, exactly. I always tell my clients, my client, I even especially this week, it's been incredible. My clients have all repeated the same thing. They said to me, I know you're not at a stage of business where you wouldn't have taken me on if you didn't think you could support me or if you didn't think I couldn't make it.
Mhm.
Like I've been told that 3 times this week on my call with
What?
clients. I'm like fighting the tears as they're talking. I'm like, but it really lights me up that they know that even before they invest in me, that they know I'm not going to bullshit them. If I think something's not going to work, I'm going to tell them. If I don't feel that they're ready for something, I will tell them what they should be doing instead because I don't want to set them up for failure. And as I always say, my client's success is my success.
Yeah.
Like I can't take you on if I don't think you're going to go far or if I don't think you're going to achieve it because that's a reflection on me at the end of the day.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've said the exact same again, we're, like, in each other's minds, but, um, I think when, like, people first reach out, right, they have, like, these walls up because they're so afraid to get sold on or whatever, but I say that all the time. I'm like, "I'm not gonna sell you on my higher package, my REA 3.0. I'm not gonna do that because if you don't have the basics, right? Yeah, I could try and get you in there and make more money off of you. Number 1, I'm not about that. Number 2,
Totally.
my success is your success. So you aren't gonna be able to achieve anything at 3.0 without first starting with 1.0. And that's gonna make me look bad, right? If I have all these people signing up for my higher ticket offer and they're all leaving and it's putting a bad taste in their mouths. And I think that's one
100.
thing that yeah, I think that's one thing that like I don't know, a lot of women I know we get sold to a lot, but keep that in mind as well too from the other side. And that's how you know again that you're going to align with someone that has the same values as you. Because obviously, right, there's coaches out there that do make false promises or do try and just make a sale off of you and get you in the wrong thing. And that's why they come to us and they're nervous, like, to invest again.
100%. I think there are a lot of people that give us a bad reputation because they provide false promises or they are selling out of that desperation. So it's not that they don't
Yeah,
believe they can't support you, but they're still in that stage of like, I can take on anybody, anything
yeah.
for any reason, and I
I
will
have
try.
all the answers.
I will become, even if I don't have the answers, I will become what you need. And
Yes.
they sell from that energy. And unfortunately, then they do the rest of us a disservice because then when they can't reach the expectation they've now set for that client and the client doesn't excel in the direction they wanted to go, then when they come to people like us who can actually support them, they don't trust us or that level of trust is gone. And then it makes that person feel like, well, what's different? But I actually had that question. Before from a client who invested. She was like, I've had coaches who told me I would do X, Y, and Z, and I didn't. What makes this different? And I literally said to her, I am not going to justify myself to you. What I can tell you is that my clients who have been inside these programs, put the work in, done the implementation, applied things that I teach them, they have seen the results. But there have been clients who haven't because they haven't applied what they needed to. And I'm okay with telling you that because you can decide which category you are.
Yeah.
And that is my answer. And she literally said in the next message, thank you so much for your transparency and your honesty. Where do I sign up?
Yep. I've said
Because
the exact same
yeah,
thing at the DMC, literally. And and here's the bad thing, and I won't say bad thing, but one time I did get someone that was like, "Well, that's what exactly what the other person said." And they didn't sign up with me, and I was like, "Ugh." But you know what I mean? There's there's nothing that you can really do at that point too. Um, but again, I'm fully transparent and I even tell them too. I'm like exact same thing. I'm like, because they're like, I always get the question, well, how quickly can I land a client? And I tell them the best and the worst. I said in my 12-week program, REA 1.0, I've had people that get their first client within 2 days before they even have just from going through the modules, right? That's an outlier. Is that the average person? No. But also too, I'm like, I've also and then I have clients, a lot of them leave fully booked out or at 3K or whatever. I said, but there are some people that go through the entire 12 weeks and they don't get a client. I said, here's the difference. they didn't implement what I told them to do, right? They didn't implement the steps. They didn't show up. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't show up for their coaching calls. I said that the people that did leave and get fully booked out, they were coachable and they communicated with their coach.
Oh, 100%. It makes such a difference. Like I've got two key programs that I have. I've got Foundations to Fully Booked, which is like for people who want to create their first signature offer, learn about content strategy, really hone in some sales skills, develop their brand. And then I've got like my Freedom Expansion Mastermind, which is for like the scaling business owner who wants to move to one to many offers and build their teams and scale in that direction to like 5-figure months. But when clients come to me, sometimes people ask about say they ask about their fem, I call it fem, freedom
Mhm.
expansion mastermind, and they're like, oh, what about fem? And then I ask them all these qualifying questions, and then I tell them, based on everything you've told me, and fem is more expensive, I could tell them it's my highest ticket offer. I could say to them, yeah, go for fem, I'll take your money or whatever, but I cannot be that person. And I say to them, based on everything you're telling me, you will sue Foundations to Fully Book better because it's going to help me to build your offers with you, work on your pricing strategy, build your brand, your personal branding, your help you to understand the different types of content types that are going to sell your offers inside your content strategy. And it's going to help me to teach you the skill on a discovery call. So you're going to cover those bases before you even look at scaling your business. We're
Mhm.
going to like really crunch down and make sure you have a solid foundation for building a
Yep.
5-figure business. And there's a significant difference between those two prices. And one's a 4-month program, the foundation's fully booked. It's 4 months, FEM is 6 months. Like there's so many things I could have said to that person at that time and said, yeah, go for FEM, no problem.
Yeah.
But if I do not feel you're ready and I don't feel you're going to get the same result that you want, I won't put you into that program. And I feel like that confidence and that transparency is what really helps. And it's the same with anybody. If you're at the very beginning of when you're working with somebody, like say you become a VA and you decide to specialize in social media management, and you say you have an offer that you have 3 posts versus 5 posts, don't try to oversell your 3 posts if you know for a matter of fact they're not going to get that result that they want, that they would have gotten in your 5 post package. Because if you oversell your lower package and they don't get the result, it's a reflection on you, your abilities, your capabilities, and the expectation drops then. And again, they leave with that bad taste in their mouth. Whereas if you're transparent and say, with 3 posts, this is what you can expect, but with 5 posts per week, this is what you can expect, which one do you prefer? Which one suits your goals better? And let that person decide for themselves. They will appreciate that transparency and your confidence in what their abilities are and manage that expectation. And in turn, I feel like it really sells itself.
Yeah. And they can, yeah. And at that point, they can kind of make their own decision. That makes so much sense. I told you, I was like, I feel like we're going to be on the same wavelength, but I love talking to people like you as well, too, because I think, um, sometimes people when they're new to the online space, they almost need to hear from like another person to be like, okay, this person actually really knows what they're talking about. I love when I have guest speakers that come and talk to my clients, because 'cause I'm like, "I tell you guys the same thing." Like, you get like, right? I always I always get pushback. I think on the niching down is the one that I get the most push, even in the DMs. So, yeah, I love when we can just sit and be on that same page. But what would be your biggest tip for, anyone that might be basically where you were at, what, 3, 4 years ago when you wanted to leave your 9 to 5? Again, not because they hated it, but they were wanting more of that freedom.
Oh, I've been practicing. I have a mindset coach, and she tells me practice before you launch into what you're about to say because I feel like my brain is already trying to think of when you
And
do
I'm
stuff.
putting you on the spot too, right?
I think my biggest thing would be trust your investment and invest in somebody who's already in the position you want to be.
Mhm,
So somebody who's walked the walk, somebody who has talked the talk, somebody who's already the steps ahead of you in the position that you want to get to. Because sometimes I feel people start going through like the master classes, the free ones, the templates. They spend all their money on low tickets, self-paced, or
mhm,
the cheaper option of the person who's maybe one step ahead of them and they start investing in them because they've got cheaper services, but then they don't get to the place they want to be in their business because that person isn't further ahead than that person wants to be. So
mhm.
I think invest in somebody who's a couple of steps ahead of where you want to go.
Yeah,
And trust the process of the situation that you are. And also, don't be afraid of niching. Niching is probably going to be the best thing you ever do.
The riches are in the which I right, we could say niche, but, the riches are in the niches is what I
Yeah.
was told when I was new.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with that, even when you're considering who to invest in, is that a direction you see yourself going in, or have they supported people to go in the direction you want to go in successfully? And let that be what makes your decision for when and investing in yourself, because investing in yourself is terrifying. But I also say that it also shows a level of commitment that you have to the belief you're going to make it.
Yeah.
And putting your money where your mouth is you telling yourself, I trust my decision in moving forward, and I trust that I'm going to make it to the place I want to go. Because you're really putting that commitment into yourself from the beginning.
Yeah, you're putting the that skin in the game.
100%.
Yes. I love it. Thanks so much, Nadine, for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. I know this is gonna resonate with our listeners so much, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.